Thank you. We are here for the book talk with our trio, and I will now give the mic to Mr. Kamesh. But with one announcement, two announcements. One is our phones on silent, please. And second announcement for the signing, if you can bring your own books, that's fine. Signing will be done after the talk, and we will announce the time for it. Please prepare your questions as you listen. We hope to have a very invigorating and stimulating question and answer session. Okay, so whatever you want to add, please, now's the time and place to do it. Okay, and the other one is if you have not bought a book yet, buy the book first, and then Datuk will sign it, inshallah, once the session is done. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, now over to.
Terima kasih. Selamat datang, salam sejahtera. Very good evening, friends, colleagues, all those who have joined us for this book talk. A very good afternoon to our panelists, book writers, Dr. Hussein and Diana. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks for making it all the way to TRX at 5 p.m. A bit of traffic in the middle of the day, but I think everybody here is really interested in the topic. So thank you so much for having us here. A big thanks to MPH for hosting us at this very nice and luxurious venue, as well as to Malaysiakini and Kini Events for putting this event together. So thanks so much, everybody. Today we have two very well-known authors, Dr. Hussein and Diana Buku. And we are going to talk a little bit about Dr.'s book and also get Diana to kind of respond to some of the issues that we have here. I'm not sure how many of y'all have already read the book? Or still are? Okay, the rest of y'all are going to read the book soon, right? So I first came across the book a couple of months ago, and I was really impressed because I found the book really illustrating some of the key issues that I myself have felt. That Malaysia is a country of missed opportunities. That we could have done so much better in so many different areas. And Dato's book, I think, illustrated some of them very well. From before Merdeka up to today. And I think looking forward, Malaysia will be 100 years in about 30 plus years. So as we look forward to Malaysia at 100, what kind of country do we want it to be? And are we again going to have missed opportunities in building that country? Or can we take advantages of the opportunities that we have here to make it the country that we want to be? So these are some of the topics that we want to discuss today. So to kick it off, I want to ask Dato some questions, right? I mean, Dato, this is your second book, right? And I think that you wrote your first book and then you decided to write the second book. What made you decide to write about this book? What was your motivation?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, most people write books out of inspiration. In my case, it's not so much inspiration, rather frustration and to some extent anger. But here we are, almost 67 years into our independence. Literally about 34 years to go before we celebrate our 100th year as an independent nation. And where are we? I ask myself, in respect of the aspirations of our forefathers when they founded this country, and in 1957. Don't forget, we were at one time on the verge of greatness. We were a role model for many emerging countries, both Southeast Asian countries as well as in other parts of the world. Also a role model for many Muslim countries as a modern Muslim nation, having a good balance between development and pursuit of spiritual thoughts. Then suddenly we, in our haste to develop, we took shortcuts. And we begin to see erosions of values, corruption, and breakdown in the check and balance in our system that our forefathers have set up. So our progress started to falter, our values eroded, with corruption in Malaysia being the headlines all over the world, given the scale of it. We fell from grace. This is a country that only 30 years ago was seen as an emerging tiger. So I asked myself, what went wrong? What went wrong? So what I did was, I projected also that I half of the team that we're only in one generation, 37 years, we'll be celebrating 100 years as an independent nation. What have we got to show? We are still grappling with lingering issues that have plagued us since independence, about race, religion, basically lack of harmony between the races. So that's what prompted me to write this book. But there was one big problem with that. This book is a way about history. I'm not a historian. In a way, this book is about politics. I'm not a politician, thank God. It's also about Islam. I'm another Islamic scholar. I have never spent a single day in the madrasah. And when I attended religious classes in school, I recall I spent most of the time reading comics in the back of the room. And I always had a problem with the stuff. And I write about economics, but I'm not a trained economist. So I have to make sure that nobody laughed at my book. Along the way, I met the son of one of Malaysia's most foremost historian, the son of Professor Khoo Kim, adding two. So he looked at my first draft and he said, Alex, get your facts right. Otherwise, people will laugh at you. So I spent about 6 years altogether with a break in between. I will tell you later why there was a break in between. Doing research, went to the National Library, went to the archives here, so we go to London, spent some time in London, the British Museum and the archive. And I was lucky because the British, they're very disciplined about declassification of government material. The British, after I think 30 or 35 years, they declassified documents and opened it to the public. So I was able to read even cabinet papers, especially about the time, and this goes back even up to the 1900s. You can go back as far as you want to. They also digitize everything, so you can just read about. I could read about cabinet meeting when they discuss our independence from Malaya. So I was able to get the British viewpoint about events in Malaysia. All this while most of the books of history were written at a time when that information was not available. So I got a fresh perspective, which I'm very happy to share. But of course, it has to be tempered with good judgment, because again, these are the British perspectives, so I have to be careful with what I write. So that's it. This book is about my take of history, and I really want purpose for this book. This relates back to our having only 33 years before we celebrate 100 years. Whatever we need to change, this book is written for the young generation, because whatever we need to make changes, that responsibility is on the shoulder of the young generation, the current generation. 33 years, mind you, is not a long time. It is as long as a period that we gave ourselves to implement Vision 2020. Vision 2020 was launched in 1990 up to 2020, 30 years. And you see what happened to that vision. We had the same period to make Malaysia a country that fulfill the aspirations of our forefathers when they established Pembinaan. So I hope what I want is just to create awareness among the new generation and also the current generation of issues facing us, and more important, the historical perspective of these issues. I'm pleasantly surprised that many of my friends who are maybe about my age, even say maybe 10 years, my colleague said, when they let it go, they were surprised at many of these events, but they were not aware of it. So I hope that the sense of learning will also be experienced by you when you read the book. But again, like I say, take it with a pinch of salt, because I'm not a historian. Validate what I read, but feel free to seek clarification when you come to Q&A later. Right?
Yeah, thanks, Dr. I think that's a very good introduction to some of your motivations. The only challenge is that I think for young people, the question is whether they're reading books or whether we have to convert this book into a TikTok. Maybe you have to dance and sing a little bit, and then they will, hear the book a bit more. But anyway, for those who perhaps have not really gone deep into your book, in a short thing, is there one single thread that you see running through the 7 missed opportunities? Why, and if there's one thing you want to pick out that we should remember, so that we change our path ahead, what would that be?
Just one point, to add to what you said about whether people will read the book. When I first read this, I approached one publisher and he said, Malaysians read only 2 kind of books sell in Malaysia. One is cerita seram, horror story. The other is love story. Then my book is a special interest. So you wrote a similar book. Diana wrote a book, Jangan Pulau Otak, Jangan Ajak Otak. So she had that experience as well. So you're right, it is a challenge to get people to read that. What's the question again?
Is there one thing that a common thread through the book that we should remember in terms of why this piece of
the book is the big title is How Malaysia Missed the Chances at Fashion Building. But the subtitle is actually more important. Can we learn from them? But this book, the thickness of the part of the book is about looking back, which I call reflections. And the purpose of looking back is just to see what did we do wrong and learn from it, so that when we go to what I cover in the second part of the book, aspiration, we learn from the mistake of the past. So if you why be giving away too many things if I want to learn?
Pick one thing.
Pick one thing. I will pick,
like a taster for that.
I will pick one thing, but I will express it in 2 ways. One is the Muslim way, the Muslim perspective. Let me quote the Quran that demonstrate that maybe heighten the common thread. No, I will do the non-Muslim way first. We must not take shortcuts. If there's a common thread, if we think why we missed, that's because the common thread is we took shortcuts. We want to do things fast, we don't address the fundamental, we took shortcuts. Essentially, that's what that didn't lead to a sustainable success. And which is the problem. We have a lot to show in terms of physical structure, success, but in terms of substance, I think we have an issue there, and that's because we took shortcuts. If the Muslim narrative is ayat 5 and 6 surah Syariah. وَإِنَّمَا أَنفُسِهِمْ يُسْرًا. إِنَّمَا أَنفُسِهِمْ يُسْرًا. These two verses, I'll translate later. These two verses are the only two verses that are repeated immediately, consecutively. Many verses in the Quran are repeated at various times, but these two verses repeated consecutively. Verse 5 and 6 of what it means is surely. After hardship comes success. The literal translation is surely. Thought and perseverance, the message is thought and perseverance lead to success. In other words, susah dulu. Suffer first, work hard first. Success comes later. Whereas many take the shortcut, many people want to take the shortcut of senang immediately, avoid susah. The book explains of that. I will not explain it now, but I will link you to find out what I meant. But that is a common thread. Common thread. We must not take shortcuts.
Yes, no shortcuts. Malaysia is very famous. You see no entry sign one way. You see party pun tak boleh shortcuts. It's a Malaysian way. Thank you so much. Going over to Diana. Diana, what did you find interesting in the book? And having written yourself, what are some of the reflections that you would like to share?
Thank you, Pram. First and foremost, I would like to show my appreciation to Dato' Abish and also Puan Awarni for the invitation. I really received invitation to speak in English because I write on Facebook and social media in our bahasa kebangsaan, bahasa Malaysia, and my podcast also is in BM, so it's a good training ground to be here today. Thank you to Dato' Abish and also Puan Awarni. I read this book, was given to me a month ago, and I finished it within 2 weeks' time. And I can tell you, this is one of the best books that I read post-pandemic. There's 3 points that I think I need to highlight about this book, the strength of it. Number one is the compilation of historical data, the facts and figures. I think that is the most compelling factor in this book, because you read history, you get A in SPM, you read history and you swallow all the facts, but there's no context to it when you do it last time. But in this book, what Dato' has done, it gives the historical data, facts and figures with soul. So you have that perspective, you have that context, and it's really, really powerful. That's number one. Number two is that the power of storytelling in the book is very masterful. I read this book within that 2 weeks. I remember I went to TRX for a dinner during the weekend with my husband. So we took the MRT from Putrajaya to TRX, and I read the book in the train. And that page on the Declaration of Independence, the Rahman, I literally cried in the train, and it's really, really, really rare for me to cry over a book, but this book really moves you and really touch your heart. So the power of storytelling is very masterful what Dato' did in order for him to tell us the historical facts. That's number two. Number three is that even though the book, literally convey to us the criticism, the bad part of history in our nation building, at the end of the page, the last page, you can still feel the glimpse of hope. You can still feel inspired by that. There's so much can be done for nation building. So I think that's the 3 factors. As a conclusion, I think this book, like what Dato' said just now, I think will serve as a reminder to the future generation, including myself, not too young, but including myself, that the do and don'ts and what can we learn from our past leaders, the mistake, so that we can be better. As the saying goes, people who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. So this is the history we can learn and fix our nation. Thank you.
Very good, fantastic. I think having lived through perhaps a much more of the current political history of the country, right? Kind of felt the drama of the Malaysian politics in the last 10, 15 years has been high drama. What do you reflect? Have you seen any more recent mischances or things that you felt that, we should have done this way rather than some other way?
The thing about this book, it was written up to 2020, right? Up to 2022. So Dato has literally spelled down the 7 parts, which is inclusive of Malaysia Baru and also Dancing Within Time, right? There's just one part. But I think if there's a missed opportunity that I can explain, we are hoping for the current government to actually, do all the reforms promised to us. And if, they have this chance now, 2/3 majority, the promise of reform, and they can't do it now, I think it will be another missed opportunity for Malaysia, current government.
So you're saying that the current government has the opportunity to maybe reframe some of the fundamentals of this country. Yeah. At the same time, there are a lot of constraints, right, that the current government faces. So we will come to that. I think what we hear is also about if you look at how the mischances, there are a lot of obstacles to change. Right? So there are a lot of obstacles to change, and that is why people take shortcuts. So Dato, you can reflect on some of the current obstacles, right, of change. How would we overcome some of these current obstacles? What do you think are some of the obstacles? And how do we want to overcome it? So for example, you said don't take the shortcut. But that's always the easiest way, right? So it's always a part of the least resistance. So how do we, as much as we want change, how do we overcome the obstacles that lead us to missing those chances?
I have had several sessions like this, and one very common question from all the sessions is maybe I tell you, if you don't mind, why don't we break this apart and ask for a question from I will see whether the question is also asked in the session. If it is asked, I will respond to the question accordingly.
So Dato, I think Dato would rather open up the conversation, and everybody has come here, and I think there's some important initial thoughts. So what we'll do is that let us take a few questions. If there are no questions, I will ask the tough questions. But I think some of you have come here with some important questions to ask. I think Dato is here to take some of these questions. I think put it this way so that we will do a back and forth. So anybody here have any questions for Dato? You want to start, yes sir? Can you just introduce yourself and then.
Thank you. The title is These 7 Chances at Nation Building. Okay. So I think you.
Could you just introduce yourself, sir?
Myself. Myself, I'm Ramli. All right. I'm a retiree.
Thank you.
I'm a kampung from kampung.
From kampung, okay.
All right. So my question is, apabila negara mencapai kemerdekaan, jadi tiada siapa yang berbincang, nobody discuss seriously about the concept of nation building. What more nation building in our Malaysian context, multi-racial, multi-religious, multi-ethnic, tidak ada. So I think we miss the chance. It's very important that nobody has started to initiate, to amalgamate, to have a clear definition that this is nation building that we are striving, right? And our leader I think our leader, the first Prime Minister, Tunku Abdul Rahman, I don't think he has any notion about nation building, rather than he just merely called for harmony, harmony, harmony. But he hasn't got a talent, the background, you want to start a nation building. It's a highly complex, complicated process. What more without even the vague notion about it? You see, so we miss that chance, We miss that chance. And then I ask you that though, maybe you say that we need nation building. Do you have that some concept? What do you want to spell out? What do you mean by nation building? Do you have that? Then you can discuss. All these people, all the 17, they are not aligned to what you might have that vision. Thank you very much.
Okay. So we'll take a few more in-depth views or questions or thoughts that can allow Dato to ponder on and give a little more confidence. Yes, we have a gentleman at the back.
Thank you very much for this invitation and welcome to all sessions and Rawani and Chris. I thought this is a very good opportunity.
Sir, could you just kindly introduce yourself and also?
My name is Dr. Azhari Karim, former diplomat, writer, and a lecturer at University Science and UIT. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What interests me in the book is that firstly to give you an opportunity to understand what you had tried to do in your first book. So when I was first asked to review your second book, I took a chance to see the book in that perspective. And there is a correlation between life balance, the first book, and also where have we gone wrong in our nation building exercise. Based on that position, I see a much bigger picture. If you look at it from life balance, if you look at it from these big chances. So the bigger picture is one which is a figure in foreign policy studies, where you talk about scenario building in the future. It has got to do with those. So you need what we call a big picture, a spectacle picture, a helicopter view, which you have tried to do from your life balance as well as from your 7 main chances. So that interested me in the book, where Liana said she took about a few hours. I only took a few hours to read it. And hence I was asked to write a review on it. I gladly consented. And I hope you enjoyed it very much. All to say that all these missed chances could have been avoided had there been enough discussion between the racial and the political differences, both cultural and the religious one. So, moving from there, combining the big picture and the perspective from down under, which is looking at what is going on around our country. I think the first question pointed at that, gave me the opportunity that a more important point is how do we reconcile the differences of nation-building views among our various racial groups. That's more important. History, of course, is there. We cannot change history, and neither do we want history to repeat itself. But nevertheless, what you have achieved in your book is that it's still possible to catch up. If you combine those two continuing things, one is the life balance, one is how do you move on a nation such as we have today. And we have shown the world that we have the example, we have the expertise, we have the leadership. And my favorite is to look at the leadership. We have the leadership. The only thing is to give it a chance. So too much has been pointed out that where so and so in PMX has defaulted. That shouldn't be our problem. We should look at how there has been an opportunity from leadership 1 to leadership 10. Finally, I will congratulate you on that point. After reading your book, The Life Balance, and the 7 missed chances, I've come to have a better view on Islam in a personal way, where I think I could reach closer to where we are supposed to look in Islam. If you go for a life talent, which means you live in the world and you live in hereafter, then there is a new significance in looking at the 7 base chances. In fact, in this world, there are no base chances, but there are chances that you can develop and you can move forward. Thank you very much, Doctor. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. Yes,
Thank you. Nama saya Rahim Zain. Saya dari Perkhidmatan Awam. Sekarang saya telah selama ini menjadi National Development Strategist. Saya tertarik dengan buku apabila Datuk akhirnya buku itu dengan harapan apa kita perlu buat 35 tahun lagi. Dan dalam buku itu tidak ada kecaman terhadap kerajaan, terhadap pemikiran kerajaan, terhadap pimpinan, terhadap mereka yang plan development. Dia tak nampak. Di sini saya rasa kalau negara ini does not want to miss the chance, kita kena fokus pada kerajaan. Orang politik kita seolah-olah makan gaji saja. Tak ada strategic thinking, tak ada vision, tak ada apa. Negara kita ini dulu menjadi pusat perdagangan antarabangsa. Orang datang ke Melaka. We still enjoy the strategic position. Jangan lupa. Tapi kalau kita jadi orang politik, nak gaji saja, tak ada fikir strategik, bisa mencontoh. Negara kita negara kecil. Rakyat tak ramai. Apa akan jadi kalau kita tidak develop this human resource as high value human resource? Takkan nak bergantung kepada buruh murahan. Now, if you are really interested in not wanting to fail in the future, you must develop this small population into a very capable, highly, prepared individual. Contohnya lah, contoh, kita tak ada banyak kata resources, minerals dan so on. Dulu kita ada satu syarikat sini, Reckon, Malaysia, anak syarikat Australia yang bijak dalam hal metallurgy. Hilang. We could have developed that specialization, contohnya lah. Jadi makna saya nak bagi tahu, kalau kita ni population kita kecil, apa dasar kita? Nak percepatkan. Kalau tidak, we continue to be living on cheap labor. Ini contoh soal. Banyak lagi perkara, misalnya kita kata food security. Selama ini cakap sana food security. What happened to the land, rural land? Siapa yang rehabilitate, siapa yang consolidate? Ada. Tapi organisasi itu ada. FELCRA, Federal Land Consolidation and Rehabilitation Authority. Apa dia buat? Jadi government kita, that someone mentioned tadi, they are not interested in nation building. Nah, semua nak jawatan, itu saja. Jadi saya tertarik dengan perasaan Datuk. What should we do so that by the year, when we reach 100 years, we are there, not here. Terima kasih.
I think I stand better. I feel more at ease stand up. Saya cuba consolidate all the question, but the common thread is what exactly is nation building kan? The very first chapter that I is on what happened after the war. America dropped the first bomb on Hiroshima on the 6th of August 1945, killing about 80,000. Immediately, maybe another 100,000 from from radiation. 6 days later, on the 3rd, they dropped this bomb. 6 days later, on the 9th, they dropped the second bomb on Nagasaki, killing almost as many and immediately and thereafter. On the 13th, on the 15th, Emperor Hirohito declared Japan will surrender. Just on the 15th. 2 days later, just 2 days later, Sukarno and Hatta declared merdeka. And when they, just 2 days later, 15 Japan declared, and when Japan declared, they kata kita will withdraw all from our occupied territories. Malaya, Indonesia, Singapore, Philippines, Indonesia, Philippines, Guam, and also Hong Kong. So Sukarno took that challenge. Why? Because he wanted to prevent the Dutch from coming back. The Dutch were ruling Indonesia for 350 years. He wanted to prevent the Dutch from coming back. Well, that news was spread all over. I knew we must have heard it. Our leaders must have heard it. Our Sultan, our aristocrat, and the nationalists in the country must have heard it. So the natural reaction from us reading about it is that why didn't we do the same? Why didn't we do the same? Why did we not take up that follow Indonesia example and declare merdeka? My point is, if we had declared merdeka, I'm not trying to check history, but I'm trying to say what could have happened in terms of thinking. If we had declared merdeka, it would be a statement of that this the people of Malaya assert authority over your country. If you rasa itu, there's no foreign power on Malaya. Japan were there, but they kind of surrendered. The victor, Britain, they were not any country. They were in Goa. Goa ni daripada Goa to India, Goa to Malaya, they were at least 21 days to sail. So they were not. This is not typical victory where a foreign army come, menang, macam bendera and say, this is my land. No, this is the victory was declared, but there was no foreign power, so we could have declared that. But if we had declared merdeka, nation building would have been our call. How we want to build the nation. But how would we build the nation? Logical. Malaya was after the war. We were all hardened by the war. For the last 5 years, we were under the Japanese occupation, and I don't wonder why. The British, with the right book, they call it Japanese occupation. But when they were occupying the country, they call it a colony of Britain. This is an example of prejudice. So we were hardened by the war. So we had built and we were already a mixed society. The Malays about 2.5 million, the non-Burmese, the Chinese, and they were about just under 2 million. We would have formed a society on satu one more factor. If we had declared merdeka, we had an immediate challenge to take. The immediate challenge was to lawan the communists. But the communists were declaring that they want to take over the country. Now, most history books will say that if the British had not come, Malaya would have become communist. So I question that. But communists? No. There were 15 Italian communist, Malayan Communist Party. But they were all spread all over the country. Not one place. 15 battalion will threaten you. But they were spread all over the country. That's why when they attack isolated posts in Turkey. But if the Malays and also the Chinese were not, they came to this country to look for a better life. They knew what communism was all about. The presumption that the Chinese would support the communists, I question that. Maybe ada among the top, but they came for a better life. Many of them have found a better life. So if we had got together and fought that, then we would have become a united race. The semangat of fighting for our country together to Padara would have made us closer. And if we had built our nation building on that premise, we would have avoided many of the problems that we have encountered. The Malays, for example, were not looking for shortcuts because there was no NDP. We all had to survive. We were hardened by the wars, we knew how to survive. We almost have heard stories from their parents how hard life was during Japanese occupation, what they did to survive. We were a hardened race. That would have been a great time to build the nation based on the reality of the challenges that we face. So, 7 years later, 1945, 12 years later, we actually formed Negara. And I know Tengku, what you say about Tengku, that Tengku was more of a father figure, harmony. The nation building, from Tengku perspective was reflected in our nation act. Rakyat hidup bersatu dan maju. United, that's the vision. United and bersatu dan maju and prosperous. The problem was, if that was the vision of nation building, that people are united, we must have policy to create that. But this is where I think we made a mistake during the we have that policy. We want our people to be united, Malaysiakini to be united and prosperous economic. But the policy did not create that. The policy actually separated the three races together. We continued with the policy of so of course it didn't happen. Of course it didn't happen. We had a second chance after May 13. May 13 happened because the premise of Malacca, the three races can coexist with differing economic situation, pursuing each different culture, can work. It couldn't work. Ada dalam dunia ada. America was a melting pot. You have the Indian, you have the American, you have the Irish, the first settlers, you have the English, you have the German, you have the Italian, you have the Mexican, the Spanish. When they go to America, they all have one language, they all go to a school. There was a melting pot. So we could have that if we had pursued the same if we had pursued assimilation and integration. In fact, our nation building was based on diversity, not assimilation, not integration, but tolerance. Tolerance, kita tinggal di satu tempat, we tolerate each other. That you don't have to tolerate. There must be a common basis. For example, the different Malaysian economy. Malaysia had only 1.5%, money only 1.5% of the economy. The other was owned by the British and the North. Okay? So it didn't happen. But NOC provided the opportunity for that to happen. When NOC was formed, led by Tun Razak, I'm indirectly answering all the questions here, but I did that. NOC, Parliament was suspended. NOC was basically a dictator. But Tun Razak was a benign dictator. He, during the 2 years, less than 2 years, 21 months, that he became NOC. Wajib Ramsey was actually deputy secretary of the NOC. So you will be able to tell the story of NOC, one of the few survivors of National Project Council. If you don't know the full story. Sorry, I hope you don't mind if I say that. So, but he never displayed any dictatorial tendency. Most people say that so my point in this book that we should have extended NOC for several more years in order to develop united build a case for united Malaysians. One school, one language with the right to learn your mother tongue and English as a further education. That requires, that is emotional method which requires strong government. But if you try to do that in the parliament, tak boleh. I mean, in fact, the NOC was suspended, or was disbanded at Parliament recall in February 31st, 1972 or 71. Kelahiran. So we missed a real opportunity to form a nation built on unity and at the same time address the economic issues to create a united Malaya base. Again, we had another chance masa Mahathir pronounced his Vision 2020. Vision 2020 was a brilliant vision, but Mahathir himself said, in order to achieve Vision 2020, 9 challenges must be overcome. One of the challenges is Bangsa Malaysia. But again, despite the power that he had, despite being the Supremo, the policy that Mahathir pursued did not lead towards that. In fact, he was more divisive. So the policy, come back to look at it, the national building has to be based on the reality of where we are now. We are a multiracial country, a committed country. So we continue to pursue policies of separate Melayu, separate Indians. How can, I mean, it's not sustainable. They're just differing, kicking the can to a future problem, and you get a bigger problem. So, 35 years ago, whatever changes we have to make has to start now. Has to start now. So you're right. That we have to leave it to the government. The reality is whatever you want to do is in the hands of the government. So the government must have political power that must have that same view. If the government is have different view, then of course the pressure has to come from the rakyat. How we know about that? And we would like there to be the government to reflect the wishes of the people they elect them. The wishes of the people they elect them is that we want peace, multi-united. And then the government has to follow policy of the line. So the reality is political leadership determine our course. That's the reality. You cannot avoid it. No matter what you and I may say, the platform, the power to administer, to guide government action rests with the politician, and they are the ones that must share this thinking. So the challenge for all of us is to assess whether I don't stop at 2022. I do not touch on whether to be still new. I mean, Bagaimana is still new. Too early to make a change, and this kind of changes won't happen overnight. What happened even in 5 years? What happened even maybe, but will start happening maybe after that. So what we have to see is whether or not the policy the government has is based on racial harmony, on economic prosperity, on forming a caring society, strong education. Has to be based on that. Then we see how serious the government is in implementing that. So the balls are our court. We now have the script. The script is Madani. Okay, let's be specific. The script is Madani. Now going beyond the book, the script Madani. Ask ourselves, is this a good recipe? Is this a good recipe? If it is, we make sure that the government tells us how are you going to implement it. Assess. Every election has been based on assessment of whether or not that policy is really being implemented. I have a chapter on the book called The Importance of Alignment and Execution. You see, what didn't happen, I mentioned earlier, was we have policy, but we have vision, but our policy are not in line with the vision. No alignment. So, katakanlah, Madani. Let's take a historical example easier because we didn't know what would happen. One of the Vision 2020 of Mahathir was Malaysia will become a scientific country. And we do not just consume science, but we produce science, we contribute science. What does that mean? If you want to produce science, what do you need? Education. Your education must be strong enough to produce people who are strong in the areas that lead to development, STEM, science, technology, mathematics. But no, we don't. Even people who develop science, they must have access to the books, the sources of science, of research, which are written in English. But no, we insist on teaching in Bahasa with limited research papers on Bahasa. So we're already behind the two papers which were written in English to be translated. Let's create a gap already 5 years. So there's no alignment. If you want to be education, then we must bring back to the honor of teaching. Teaching has always been a noble profession. But we must bring back to that nobleness of the teaching profession. Get the best teacher, the most capable teacher, attract the most capable teachers. And pay them well. Make a career, make them attract the best mind to teaching because it is a double, not just because it's a double career, but the terms show that it is a career respected with proper term. So there will be alignment. It's a what? So we end up having teachers who are mostly, I mean there are always exceptions, who are mostly last choice. Okay lah, tak dapat pilih ni dekat cikgu renang, there's no way to build a scientific society. So the basic problem is we have great vision, but we don't follow it with the right action plan aligned to that vision. Everything that we do, once we have alignment, this is what corporate do. Sorry, I'm not politician, I come from corporate sector. When we do transformation, we create with the vision where we want to be. Then everything we do, we ask ourselves, is this aligned to the vision? Is this aligned to the vision? If not aligned, we don't do it. That's how we create alignment. So if we had done, if we had a vision or united country, for example, this is a bit, this is a pressure, okay, recently there was this guideline for Muslim, that Muslim not be party popular. But if we wanted to have a tolerant society, we would before the line, if somebody promoted that line, we should ask ourselves, the powers that be, is this in line with our vision? Oh no, it should even take off the ground. So this is the importance of alignment.
Thanks so much. I think that's a good illustration of some of the key challenges in nation building. Yana, do you want to take
if I can attempt to respond to the question as well. I think, Dato is very, very, detail oriented in terms of our historical facts. If I can take the helicopter view of things, I'm a student of history. I love history, right? So during law school, we need to read this book called Mukaddimah by Ibn Khaldun. This Mukaddimah by Ibn Khaldun tells us a story about the rise and fall of civilization. There's 5 stages of it. The first generation of nation building or civilization building is always the first generation who has struggled, sacrificed the united front to get that independence. Come to the 3rd or 4th generation, they become complacent. There's this, the values have eroded. There's this looking at wealth and easy way out. So applying that Ibn Khaldun rise and fall of civilization, we are now Malaysia at stage 3 or 4. This cycle of civilization is sort of applicable. When Ibn Khaldun wrote that, a Western researcher made the same theory and applied it to 72 civilizations, is the same cycle. And I think, and I wrote this, one of my first posting that got viral, is about this. Malaysia is at that stage 3 or 4. And the anecdote to this issue is one, we have to go back to the basic, that we push away material things back to values, and we have to go back as a united front, as a nation. That's number 1. Number 2, I think people talk about nation building. To be someone that promote nation building, you have to be a nationalist. But I strongly believe that the word nationalist has been hijacked. People can tell yourself, tell people, I am a Malay nationalist. I am a Chinese nationalist. So nationalist has been taken out of context, hijacked, as a promotion of race rather than a promotion of nation building. If you are Malay nationalist and all you do, is just talk about your race, you cannot call yourself a nationalist. You can be borderline racist because you say all you want to say is about race. So I think the hijack of nationalism, we have to go back. And there's this, from the early age, we were told, demi agama, bangsa dan negara. It's always that motto, demi agama, bangsa dan negara. When the politicians play the racial and religious card, they always play the R&R, agama dan bangsa. Nobody talk about negara. So they stop at agama bangsa, and nobody talk about negara. So we have to mold it demi negara, bangsa dan agama, something like that. We have to put the nation first kind of idea to our people, especially the youngsters. I cannot say the older generation I face is very extreme and very terpaling Melayu, that one I cannot say already. But my children, my grandchildren, I think we have to have different idea of nation building. We have to put the nation first, I believe. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Very good points. Put Negara first before Negara. We have time for one more round of questions or thoughts. Can we pass the mic?
Thank you.
Okay, I'm Nick Ali. That's all. When I read your book, I couldn't put down the book. When I read it, I couldn't put it down because I was looking forward to one part which you missed very much. Actually, I wrote down there were 7 missed parts that I was really looking forward to. But it would have been a controversial book then. Dato', you did not address the part about the institutionalized religious bigotry and persecution. You did not touch on Islam being part of the frustrating part to nation building, the indoctrinations and the intolerance. And you briefly addressed the education with emphasis on quality as a priority. But we have to go on logic and reason and not have political masters to determine what our education should be. Then Dato', you also spoke about the assimilation, integration, and compromise, and tolerance or intolerance. What about the politicians and power and the opportunists and exploitation by the politicians? The Malay mindset was also not touched upon, where biasalah kalau kita buat business tu ada dengki, cemburu, envy, and I do see that when I look at Malay businesses. I see people like Datuk Vida, Alif Shukri, duck scarves. Of course, that was Khazanah Sab, I guess. But there were a lot of issues that I was looking forward to, but I didn't find it in the book. Maybe it's a little bit of a controversial subject to broach on. But if you can be a little bit braver and talk about it, because right now, as I see it, we are going towards superficial and stifling claustrophobic issues, and like perempuan tudung mana tudung, that's so stifling. So actually, I wrote quite a lot, but I think I won't bore everybody. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm Nick Sarina, formerly with the civil service, and I went into private practice, trained in law. This is a quick introduction about myself, and now I've got my own small business. Dato', you mentioned that your book is for the future generation to build, for the future generation to build our nation. But I worry that the future generation is not equipped to build this nation into what it could be, what it can be. And looking at the state of our education right now, I fear that we may miss any chance of being a great nation. For me, first and foremost is education. But during my time when I was going to secondary school, you would go to a government school. And if you went to a private school, there would be something wrong with you. But right now, anybody who could afford any parent who could afford it would send their children to a private school, because the state of our schools is just gone down to the drains. I'm sure a lot of you who would agree with me. A simple example, we have a former diplomat. He's from the old school. I could hear the way he spoke. But right now, if you see our current diplomats, they're not even able to string proper English sentence together. Because of our education system, there's no tenacity in the part of the government to improve it. And I feel that the only way to improve our future generation is to have a leader who is just willing to just do it and not worry about whether he's going to be elected again in the next 5 years. We have to find someone who is selfless and who's able to carry out what is good for the nation and to get on with it and not worry about politics and just really be a statesman, which is my view. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good view, very frank. One more question or one more thought, then we'll pass it back to Dato and Diana. Anybody else at the back? Okay, we'll come back later. Anybody else? No? Okay. Dato.
Thank you for the question. Let me make a passage of my book, which actually address that. You see this right in front. With already 9 leaders having guided us along the various paths, and now coming to our 10th, we can no longer blame our colonial masters for our evils, guilty as they were. The next generation looks to us to have a legacy they can build upon. Their responsibility will be to continue our journey towards the aspiration we have held for 37 years, preparing them for that role by instilling the right values, providing quality education to equip them with the required skill is our responsibility. So there is a chapter on delivery what nations want. Read the chapter, chapter delivering what nations want. We cannot continue to tai chi and pass the buck to the next generation, because the problem will get bigger and become too big to solve. We must accept the responsibility to recognize this persistent racial issue and several other key issues which confront us, the elephants in the room. One, building the United Nations as Malaysia. 2, having an education system able to produce a workforce with the skills required for the country's development agenda. 3, reducing bloated and unproductive government spending, reviewing the Pembinaan agenda, encouraging religious tolerance. Now we can ignore one elephant in the room, but 5 elephants? Then my last the competition effect. Just before when this book comes to an end, I was flying to Singapore and 2 young executives were sitting next to me. So I asked them what they thought about the state of the country. It was the Chinese and the Malay. They were colleagues. One of them said, "We are not in shambles, but we're not that great either." No, we are not in shambles. Many ingredients of success are still intact. We could be great again, but the road to greatness will have to begin by an acknowledgement of our problem, the elephants in the room, and the willingness to reprogram ourselves. We now have fresh leaders at the pinnacle of our country's political and sovereign leadership, both of whom and the institutions they represent are bound by the oath of office to lead us fairly and equitably towards the kesejahteraan and a better future. Fresh leaders create fresh hopes. This was in 2022. We pray that they have the courage to confront the elephants that stand in the way of our progress. And if and when they do, and address them with measures that may hurt us temporarily, we must have the patience to bear it for the sake of the next generation. But these personal sacrifices must not be borne on our shoulders alone. Our leaders too must show the empathy with the Raya, walk the talk, and demonstrate that they too are prepared to make sacrifices by cutting down on the trappings and extravagances of the office. We all need this together. Which road we will now take that will bring us kesejahteraan? Think on your point about religious tolerance. One of the chapters is on Jafar. On Jafar, to me, is an unrecognized figure, but he was the greatest fighter of all for the country, Negara, as well as he started by being a Malay nationalist. He formed UMNO for the Malays. He matured into a nationalist. That's why he proposed that UMNO open its doors to the Chinese, to the non-Malaysian, so that we become united. Now that would have, if had that gone through, but he was accused of being a traitor to his own race, so he left the party. Had that gone through, that would put an end to race-based and religion-based politics. Because if you are race-based politics, say UMNO, race-based Melayu, or FCA, race-based Chinese guy. If you want to fight, if you want to go up the political ladder, you must be seen as fighting for your race. That's why you have this similarly for if you are Malay politician UMNO, you want to say that we must integrate, you will lose support in the party. For the MCA for someone, you want to go up MCA rank, and you say we must work better with the Malays, integrate them, you will lose support in the Chinese party, in MCA. Because we are a race-based. Islam again will pass. I mean, you will have to fight to be seen as a champion of Islam, to appeal to the Malays. In fact, UMNO was a very liberal party leader, but when PAS suddenly went up on the national organ, UMNO felt that to counter that, they must show that they are more Islamic than UMNO. So that's where our problem started. So, On Jafar was considered ahead of his time, but that was almost 70 years ago. Surely now, we should revisit that idea and do away with race-based parties or the party. Have a Malaysian party. You can debate all the Malay issues, the Chinese issues within the party, so you can strike a balance. But if not, if you have one side fighting only for this religion or this faith, then whenever we are on the coalition course. I hope that in a way addressed that. But so basically, easy. If you want to a bit more of the Malay politics, I have a chapter unintended consequences of the NEP. So I'm proposing a new economic model, not Malay agenda, but economic model to strive that it has to be based on participating in economic activities, not just having shares. Okay? Good. What we can discuss more, there are a lot more issues that I this book will 240 pages, but I wanted to give you think because I was told that people don't have the patience to read the 250 pages. So I tried to narrow down to 145. This is much there was an old comic called Net magazine. They were making fun of everything. I remember seeing a comic. It's Moses came out from the mountain and after talking to God and say, God has, he was carrying 3 tablets. God, I really have to do that, but this is from that magazine. God has given me 15, so everyone still drop, 10 commandments. I saw 15, but because I only broke once, so become 10 commandments. So, Buku apa sama juga, it was stupid. I addressed the issue, but all I want to do is just get it over there. Let other writers take it up. This is just to open the tap. It did not focus on each topic. So I hope I've done that. So it's not exhaustive, but by choice. Intended to be brief and just credible.
Had it been more controversial, you'd have sold more books.
But I'm not lost. The other day, Zaid Ibrahim had a podcast. He said, "Hamish, why don't you enter politics?" I said, "Zaid, I won't last. That was right. I will be charting. Charting is a counter meaning tackle from behind.
Thank you, Dato'. I think the common theme of the question and the inputs from the audience is that there's frustration towards our national leadership, our politicians, and I think coming back to that Mukaddimah concept of nation building, we are at that stage 3 or stage 4, where our leadership, our leaders, that quality is not the same as the first generation. You're going to have, as you can see in Parliament now, the quality of debate has been, we just shut our TV or our YouTube. We cannot stand anymore their debates and whatnot. But the thing is that I must say, in order for us to move forward, I lost my line of thoughts already. Okay. No, the thing is that it's very, very important that, Dato', if you can see in your books that 7 missed chance of nation building, not just the historical part, but how we want to push the current government not to repeat what has been done before, right? And the frustration of the current leadership, I can feel that because I work with 4 ministers, federal ministers, from BN time to PH time, still helping them now with the current government from outside. Our political scene and our political world, at a very high toxicity, very toxic already. It's very muddy. Many of us, I'm sure, have been offered to join politics and we said no, because it's too muddy for us to get in. That's why just stay outside the ring and try to push things. So if our leaders cannot do it, I always believe that in order for us to change politics, we have to change our society. We have to mold our society. The silent majority, especially those who are not too total or takso or fanatics about our party or our leaders, to be the voice of reason for the rakyat, to push our political leaders. And the silent majority has to voice out. We want changes. We want education reform. We want institutional reform. We want policies for racial integration, national integration. And Singapore, we have a lot of examples. Singapore just amended or enacted Racial Harmony Act. This is second attempt they did it. We don't have any of those legislation at all. And we kept relying on Seditious Act to take action on all this racial issue. So I think it's very, very crucial that we empower our people, keep educating the silent majority for voice to voice out, because I truly believe that the power in people is greater than the people in power.
It's very true. I think the power rests with the people, right? I think we are waiting for the government to act also. The government also responds to votes. So if they see the voters are voting like this, they tend to go in that direction, right? Which is a challenge. Any more further questions or thoughts? If nobody else, we will keep the gentleman in front. But anybody else wants to chime in?
Assalamualaikum. My name is Pujo. Okay, so thank you, Dato'. I was one of the first few guys to read this book, and I was there at your launch. And one of the guys in the audience asked, "Has PMS been given a copy?" Yeah, so this is always on my mind. Has he been given a copy, and what has he done, or has anybody followed up with him?
So we'll have to follow up with him.
Yeah, why not? Yes, right. Because he's not just one man, right? He's got a team. Definitely his team would know about what we're doing here. So if they don't learn from this book, who will learn? So that's my question, yeah. And also, I think Nick, right, it was talking about, the second one, about public school and all that, yeah. Okay, so Fred is my super junior in school. So we went to public school. So during the 1980s, 1970s, 1980s, there was so much racial harmony within us. So I was just talking to Brent. Nowadays, when my Chinese group has a gathering, the Malays don't want to go. They kata kolot lah, they kata ini haram lah, itu haram lah. Because some of them are so engrossed with agama, really you're saying about agama. And during my time, I was line. I was born Indonesian, I'm a Malaysian now. I became Malaysian in 1986. So during school, I was neither Malay, Chinese, or Indian. But unfortunately now, it's not like that. I think, that was not that. During your generation, kan semua boleh, do kamcheng. But nowadays, I see everybody is within their own community, within their own pockets. And even I went into schooling, I became the YDP of 2 colleges and 3 schools. It was the same thing. The Malays were within themselves, the Chinese were within themselves. And unfortunately, the teachers also had to do a lot of things on the computers. So besides teaching, they had to write reports. And unfortunately, that had to be done before they left home. Or else they have no time with the family. So I think that's the thing that needs to be changed as well. And then when you change the minister, all the forms are changed. You got different KPIs. And then sometimes the things that are required for the teachers to fill up are, to me, it's just a waste of time, right? They should be there teaching with passion. I still know my primary school teachers, although I left school more than 50 years ago. But unfortunately, in this day and age, those teachers, or maybe students and teachers' relationship is not there anymore. So, thank you very much. And next question.
Okay, thanks. I think we are coming to time. Okay, one last question at the back, and then we will wrap up.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Saya Muhammad. Saya datang lewat sikit dalam untuk mengikut program tadi, agak lewat. Jadi saya tak dapat dengar mukadimah. Tapi daripada perbincangan yang tadi untuk nation building, macam-macam perkara dibangkitkan. Salahkan politician, salahkan orang, salahkan yang semua. Bagi saya, untuk membangunkan negara, nation building, rakyat Malaysia yang perlu berubah, bukan politician, bukan guru, bukan siapa, rakyat Malaysia. Kenapa rakyat Malaysia perlu berubah? Mereka perlu back to the basic kemerdekaan dulu berdasarkan kepada perlembagaan negara. Tuan-tuan, Datuk dan semua boleh tanya, berapa ramai rakyat Malaysia yang mengetahui perlembagaan Malaysia? Apa dia perkara 153, apa perkara 152, apa perkara 168 di dalam perlembagaan sebagai rakyat Malaysia? Di mana jiwa Malaysia ni? Macam saudara cakap tadi depan saya, Indonesia. Kita sebagai Malaysia tak tahu perlembagaan Malaysia, tak tahu social contract yang ditandatangani, yang dijadikan asas untuk mewujudkan perlembagaan Malaysia. Di mana roh Malaysia, roh sebagai bangsa Malaysia, di mana? Tidak ada. Kalau roh Malaysia sebagai rakyat Malaysia tidak ada, bagaimana to build up the nation building? Semua karut. Jadi siapa yang salah? Jadi rakyat Malaysia, pendidikan, dari segi ekonomi, dari segi sosial, back to the basic. Go one by one perlembagaan Malaysia. Itu yang perlu diwujudkan supaya roh sebagai Malaysia, jiwa, jati diri sebagai rakyat Malaysia, itu yang boleh membina ke arah pembangunan nation building. Kalau tidak ada itu, sampai bila tak ada masa dan tak ada lagi yang akan dapat mewujudkan seperti Datuk kata, apa yang kita miss. So, seperti yang dibincangkan dari segi undang-undang, dari segi pendidikan, dari segi persekolahan. Kalau ikut perlembagaan dulu, kalau itu tidak akan wujud. Itu saja pandangan saya. Saya kerana untuk cakap sebab apa yang dicakapkan tadi, basic dia tidak dipegang. Jiwa sebagai rakyat Malaysia, roh Malaysia itu di mana? Di mana kita? Jadi balik kepada perlembagaan. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih. Okay, we will start to wrap up. Maybe some final comments from yang start first.
I would like to respond to the last gentleman just now on that issue. People say great men or women things alike, right? And I wrote the same piece last 2 weeks called this, one posting I wrote on Facebook called Fundamentals. And I promote the concept of Malaysian being a centrist, not far to the left, not far to the right. Not the paling Melayu, the paling Islam, or the paling liberal, or the paling secular. Because we are a multiracial country, we have to be in the center. Moderate, progressive. In Islam, we call it wasatiyah, tengah-tengah. So, what is fundamental of being a centrist? Fundamental of being a centrist is the person who adhere to our federal constitution. All the elements of federal constitution, we have to maintain it, status quo. Our founding fathers have had that wisdom to put and drafted a very, very beautiful constitution. You know, the social contract, the respect of other races and their rights and privileges, all there for us to uphold it, uphold it. That's number one on constitution. Number two, that I think we always forget. We always forget. Not just the constitution, the other fundamental is the Rukun Negara. And the Rukun Negara is always there for us to, you know, really hold and really capture. But as though as our politicians never want to touch Rukun Negara. In Rukun Negara, there's this one word liberal in it. Untuk mewujudkan masyarakat yang liberal, yang menerima kepelbagaian kaum dan agama. There's the word liberal there. Because there's the word liberal there, the politicians refuse to say anything about Rukun Negara and just maintain about kepercayaan kepada Tuhan, what but the objective was never mentioned. Now recently I heard from my own children at school, they started to read back from the start, not just that, and so it is there. So I think fundamentally, I totally agree with what the Tuan just said. Just now, I wrote the same piece last 2 weeks. We have to go back to the basic, the fundamentals, keluhuran perlembagaan, kedaulatan undang-undang, and of course, at the end of the day, to uphold our Rukun Negara, to be that nation that, you know, the great nation that we hope for. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, I think the discussion obviously reflects the deep concern that everyone seems to have. Therefore, for our country, the concern revolves around really fulfilling our potential. So I just want to close with what I read just now. We all in this together. We have to play our respective role. Thank you. So I would like to thank MPH for organizing this program, for doing this together, Diana for supplementing my thoughts, and Diana, she's a King's University Senior College graduate, and you can detect that from the use of language. But she writes in Malay, but I wish she can translate my book, but her Malay is as good as her English. One last point was just to share. Someone sent me a message on WhatsApp Dia kata kita patut ikut orang Indonesia. Orang Indonesia ni di politik masa election aja. Habis election, they all focus on the job, focus on the winner, that's it. Kita 24 hours politik. 24 hours time to politik. Maybe there's something we should look inward as well. The fault is not always in the stars and ourselves. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the views, Dato' and Negara. And thank you so much for all the thoughts and comments and questions. I think we touched about nation building, we touched about education, we touched about the constitution, we even touched about whether PMX has read the book or not. So I think there's a lot of food for thought. Thank you so much for coming today. And once again, a big thanks to MTH, Malaysiakini, Kini events, Puan Marwani, put in all the organizing. Can we give her a big clap? Very hard. And of course, thank you to Dato' and Jenama. So I think now we will have a book signing, okay? Just one will have a word and thank the book autograph from Dato'. Thank you all for coming today. Thank you.
Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, if you have the books already with you, you can line up here, right here, and if you would like to buy a book, the books are already at the counter. There are two counters open, so the books are already there. So you can just go there and bring it back here for signing. We end the session at 7 o'clock, so you